Mayong gabi. Ayan, welcome to our usual Wednesday night. Dinhi sa samahan si Kuya Nonoy. Tara, istoryahan na ita. So this is still on our usual Wednesday. This is our sixth live, and we have a very what's this? We have an excellent guest for tonight. No, the same level of excellence, but of course different approach for tonight's discussion. So welcome ka natong tanan. Lamig karong gabi, medyo ulan din kung asa man ako ang location. So uh, tonight we'll be talking about the Practical Leaders Series 6, Scholar ng Bayan under New Normal, and we are very honored to have with us an academic scholar to discuss us tonight. Usab, ano ba talaga ang pagiging isang scholar ng bayan? So let us welcome our guest for tonight. Kuya, maayong gabi, JC.
Maayong gabi, Kuya Noy. Maayong gabi ipod sa tanan, sa ato ang mga viewers.
So how are you today, man?
Oh, well, quite busy. Well, we're quite actually busy in the university preparing for the building of online learning environment, so that we'll be prepared to open the semester by August.
All right. Okay, so before we start, let us first, of course, formally introduce our guest for tonight. So our sorry for that. I clicked a different menu. So that our guest for tonight is a good friend of mine, um, Jovanie or Dr. JC is a professor in the Department of Political Science from the Mindanao State University in Gensan. Right. Way back, he graduated way back in 2006, cum laude of AB Political Science, and then later had his master's in public administration in the same university in 2011. Then in 2019, he received his PhD in political science from the Department of Political Science and International Relations of the University of Canterbury in Christchurch, New Zealand. This is under the scholarship grant from the government of New Zealand and European Union Center Network. JZ or Dr. JC or Giovanni is an executive board member of the Research Committee on Conflict, Security, and Democratization of International Political Science Association. He is also a research fellow of the Center for Middle East and Global Peace Studies of the National Islamic University of Indonesia. His areas of research and interest intersects between and on the disciplinary boundaries of political science, anthropology, critical security and development studies, and as well as is now a published scholarly, or he has already published scholarly articles on the areas of peace building, development, and security issues in Southern Philippines, and as well as Aceh, Indonesia. So we have a real academic scholar tonight, young, very brilliant. He has now also provided consultancy services to these areas to the World Bank, Save the Children, the Asian Development, and International Alert. So our dear friend, Dr. Jovanie Espesor. Thank you, Ju, for really agreeing with me to join me in this journey of mine. But before, just to prep our guests and our viewers, note that this is FB Live at Samahan si Kuya Nonoy is our new way of volunteering under this new platform. And it's not in any way related to which organizations and companies involved below. Tama man, Ju, no?
Oh, so
Okay,
it's
and then before we start, let us just ask. Go ahead, Giovanni. Go ahead.
well, it's my pleasure, Kenoy. Thanks, for the invite, and hello to everyone who are watching us in FB. So, mayong gabi sa tanan.
Maayong gabi, maayong gabi. And then speaking of watching, we just have to greet our viewers now. Yang Waters. Hi, Yang. Tingnan mo yan, wow, maka-proud kayo mo, kuya. And then later, Yayang, we're going to hear a lot more in terms of what we're doing now. And of course, si Buchi Joke Juniora, one of our fans since day one last June. Hello sa inyong tanan. And of course, we have uh, Shen Padungo. We have an author online. Hi, Zizo. Hope to see you again. And then as well as, yeah, and all other friends. And to those who would like to have questions and comments, please do so in the comment box. And just like as before, by the end of July 2020, there will be surprises and some gifts for those for our avid viewers for tonight. So, what is our topic for tonight? So for tonight, we'll be discussing the relevance of being a scholar to young people and how we define the scholar ng bayan under this new setting. And then I also would like to answer which a part of continuation we have with Andel 3 weeks back. We'd like to answer, kinahanglan ba gyud nato bright kaayta para mahimutang parang pareho ni Dr. Jovanie Espesor? Or how do we try to, diba? Or how do we try to say, I can also do it. Diba? I can also do it. The positive energy sa atong mga kabatanunan karon who are basically watching. So within that sphere of three key questions, I'd like to invite ato ang mga viewers karong gabi na key in your questions and comments. Then we'll try to put them in the live feed as well for us to answer. So again, this is Sara Istoryahanay Ta, and this feed tonight is being sponsored to us by Happiness Santos City. Maybe it's also good. And then also being sponsored by CNC Family Merchandise and online selling services diha sa Polomolok South, Cotabato. Okay, let's get the ball rolling for this question sa lamig ug ulan nga panahon karong gabi una. So, Juv, how do you cope na being an academic in the university? How are you coping as an academic under this quote-unquote new normal environment now while there's COVID pandemic that we're going na atong na experience right now?
Oh, well, the COVID-19 pandemic actually has brought major challenges, especially to the academic sector, including us here in General Santos. Although, still, we are actually fortunate that we are under modified GCQ and we are considered as low risk, but still, we cannot take chances of being infected of the coronavirus. So it's actually quite challenging, especially on my part, that before I was the special assistant for research in the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research and Extension, and then I was transferred to the Office of the Chancellor as a special assistant to the Chancellor. So my role actually shifted from a very academic, research-based scholar into a quite political and administrator type of academic in the university. So I'm actually jungling a lot of portfolios assigned to me by the Chancellor, especially the College of Medicine, which is unfortunately put on hold because of the major challenge brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are also working on the titling of our land in Fatima campus because it's granted to us by the state through a presidential proclamation. But I just discovered that the title of the land is not yet issued in favor of the university. So hopefully we can get it soon. And now we are working with BARM because BARM just opened a lot of vacant positions to be filled in. and most of or some of their applicants are actually from Soxurgen, and it's very dangerous for them to travel to Cotabato City just to take the online assessment. So I am actually coordinating with BARM to help them uh, administer their online examinations here in MSU. So it's also one way of helping our Muslim brothers and sisters to be employed in the regional government of the Bangsamoro. And now, gearing towards internationalization, we are quite busy building the content of our new website for the university. So there are a lot of things, and of course, seminars here and there. Uh, I just serve as discussant of webinars of the Research Committee 44 of the International Political Science, talking about the securitizations of the COVID-19, and of course, the ever-present challenge of continuing publication. So it's actually quite challenging to write, to have that focus of writing. So I just actually received the feedback from my editors, and they're asking me to send the papers back immediately. And of course, to cope with this challenge, it's also an opportunity for me to learn some new dishes, especially Korean dishes. So I did a lot of cooking. So I did a lot of research on how to cook Korean dishes. So thanks to Shopee, I'm able to purchase
Well,
the. I'm able to
well, it looks
purchase
like
those ingredients. Yeah.
it's kind of like a variety and diversity of you as a person, right? From academic, to a person in the family, now to a cook. And I think that's also a key takeaway, away rather, a key takeaway as we start the conversation now. That being a scholar ng bayan doesn't necessarily mean you focus so much on this kind of like the horse view of I just have to do scholarly articles and publish work. You also do manage people, manage things personally and within the office, and of course, the sad sa imong personal life. As you were saying, one of your pastimes now is basically cooking Korean food, which I also do. No, I also try to cook once in a while, and then you've already mentioned that really it's things are we're still busy at that in that instance. We are adapting and thriving. I think I start mentioning this one during the start of the conversation last June of the people should evolve from saying we are surviving to saying that we're actually adapting and thriving as a community under this new normal environment, and hopefully we can go back to the past, the normal before, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So given this kind of like bits and what was okay, we lost our signal in a bit, so I was asking earlier, uh given this all of these bits and pieces, what was the biggest impact that COVID-19 pandemic gave you actually personally, if there's one?
Well, I have to be honest that anxiety is actually real for everyone, and even in my case, um, when the COVID-19 pandemic became a worldwide concern, I just recently actually arrived in the country from my recent travel in Japan, and even when I was in
Mm.
Tokyo, uh, people were already actually worried about the infection of possible infections of the COVID-19, and even inside the plane, it was really weird, to have
Mm.
a plane from Narita to Manila, full of passengers, and all the flight attendants were actually wearing PPEs while serving food and other things to guest passengers. So it really caused a lot of anxiety. And when I arrived here in the Philippines, I was also concerned of um, being carrier of of the virus. I'm not really scared actually for myself, but I'm really scared of being a carrier and that I might also infect my family and friends. So That's one thing, and I think anxiety is okay because there is really a real threat to our existence, and I think that's fine. But I also went through such kind of moment, or let's say period, especially during the first 2 months of the COVID-19 pandemic. And when it comes to my research undertaking, it actually affected some of my research projects. So I have this
Mhm.
collaborative article, which is
Mhm.
actually halted, that I'm co-working with a professor from Waseda University and another professor from the National Center for Peace and Conflict Studies of the University of Otago in New
Mm,
Zealand.
mm,
And I'm leading a research project under Relief International on
mm,
stability and security. And I cannot simply travel to Maguindanao and Lanao del Sur because of some
mm.
travel restrictions, and
But
which
you've
is
you've
actually
you've
quite.
mentioned in yeah, sorry to cut you. You've mentioned that we kind of like all face different levels of anxiety, and we are kind of like
Mm,
concerned with ourselves, and of course more concerned in terms of carrying the virus back to our family, regardless of what we're doing. You're doing your research, you are being halted on what you are doing now, and of course these are very similar situations and scenarios sa mga uban na to mga kauban in the profession and even all others. And most especially, it will going to impact more really the young people. And as we discussed now of talking about how do we become a good scholar ng bayan, how do we face good academic endeavors once we face the schools in August, we already know na everybody will be moving into online classes or blended approach or whatever approach that is
mm,
sabi ko parang sanina siya mix match
yeah.
approaches, but you also mentioned earlier before the live that they're also concerned about how do we reach those who would not really be reached by technology. Are we going to deliver modules to them, things like that? But tonight, perhaps let's offer this opportunity for telling our viewers, especially the young people, the parents that are na nagatanaw karong gabi una sa, I think we are live in about eight. At my level, I saw eight different watch parties. Uh, we're talking about how do we maximize the virtual learning environment and the mixed method of learning in this kind of pandemic, and what are the tips we can give to our learners this year. So having said that, uh, let's take a backtrack. Paano ba ka nag-umpisa, quote unquote, as a scholar before, and what are the tools and the tools or the competencies or personal characteristics that you have as a scholar that you think others should also have para that can be worthy of emulation, or as a model for them who would like to those who would like to become a scholar like you. What do you think are these at least two to three characteristics that they should have?
Mm. Oh, well, to be honest, way back in college, I was not really actually very keen and very competitive of, uh, becoming a scholar. It's just that I just want to focus on my courses, and I just want to finish on time. So my mother
Okay.
was actually very considerate. She kept on reminding me that it's okay na tres basta hindi lang 5 kay para dili ka ma-delay sa imuhang degree ug makagraduate ka dayon. So no pressure actually for my parents, but I just actually did my part, and eventually it actually rewarded me with good grades, which allowed me to graduate with Latin honors, so something like
Correct.
that.
You were cum laude in college, and you were saying that life is like kind of like simple, and then okay lang tres or cinco. But how would you translate that one to young people? Are you sure okay lang tres or cinco, but you graduated cum laude? I mean, how was that?
I don't know. I was not really serious, and and so concerned about my grades back then. So I think it was just actually a product of luck, or perhaps
Oh,
maybe
okay, go ahead.
maybe sheer intelligence, which I
Okay,
don't really internalize,
okay.
or
So you
perhaps I
don't
was too young.
internalize your intelligence, kind of like a natural process. But I think the good point is the one that you mentioned na okay naman tres or cinco. Does it also translate to you don't compete. Just do it. If it needs to be slow, so be slow, right? Don't compete, or don't compare with others. Is that also part of your mantra as a scholar?
Yeah. I tried actually, not to compete, but actually to challenge myself. And I think that's very relevant, especially for young people now, because this is now actually the time that we are entertaining issues relating to mental health affecting our young individuals. And perhaps, being too much into competition triggered a lot of mental health issues. And it's fine to be slow. It's fine to focus on other things. If you're not really inclined into academics and you're inclined to other things like student leadership or creative arts, then you can actually pursue those things as long as you're actually giving to your passion and things that makes you happy. As
Right.
long as
I
you,
like that. I like the statement you say. You look for your inclination. You look for things that you are basically happy. Discover your creativeness, right? To where are you, and then be proud of that, and then just do not compare. And then because then Yang here says, "Wow, maka-proud ka ayo mo kuya." Any comment on that?
Oh well, hello Ariane. I'm also actually proud of our fellow graduates from the Department of Political Science of where they are now. I believe we have our own levels of accomplishments and our own contribution to our society. So I'm always proud and happy to see our fellow political science graduates as well as other graduates of the university thriving and pursuing their passion in different fields in different parts of the globe.
Maybe let's invite our viewers now. If you have comments about the question, what are basically uh, the characteristics or a competency that one should have to become a good scholar? Or if you have questions of becoming a scholar, post that in the comment box, and we'll try to answer that one later, or also to provide feedback. But I guess one of the things that we also like to tell people is ganinang buntag. Although I've already heard this one many times, I witnessed this kind of scenario also many times, even tung estudyante pa ko, even early years and up until now. People, especially the parents, sorry for saying that, or the adults in nature would say, magkuan na lang ka, mag Bachelor of Arts na lang ka, or mag humanities na lang ka, kaya di makamahimong engineer or CPA or doctor, which for me is kind of like, how would you react to, to that kind of approach, diba? Because I'm seeing many of the UM students have that kind of feeling na, even ako mamangkin, mag-UMS na lang ko, uncle, kay di pa ko bright sa math, di mo ko mahimong engineer, or di man ko maayos sa math, so di mo ko mahimong CPA, or di ko maayos sa science, therefore di mo ko mahimong doctor. How would you kind of like tibag, or maputlo ng ingana nga thinking sa mga tao na go to UMS kay dili ka maayo ani nga butang? Would that demean the purpose of their becoming a scholar as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's time for us, to educate our parents and our adults in society that they should not actually do that to their children, and of course to diminish the value of UMS. That's putting actually a hierarchical assessment of fields that we see stems higher than UMS, which is actually for me not really a very good point to emphasize, especially for parents to their children. And uh, and I think basic education, especially in junior high school and senior high school, it actually plays a very big part and role, to prepare our young students to for whatever course or whatever degree that they want to pursue in college, and they should be guided about it. And we know that for UMS courses, uh, I think that's there is actually some sort of what they call that um, um, discrimination when it comes to those kind of courses, because we are here in a
Mm,
developing country. But if we are in highly developed countries, and
mm,
they don't actually do that, because Hume's courses, especially social sciences, are very theoretical, and it requires a higher form of intelligence, to understand those theories and concepts that we are actually engaging, and which can provide a strong and potent conceptual lenses to our graduates in understanding complex social phenomena.
mm. Okay, so having that, it's kind of like we don't kind of like question the choices of young people, di ba? Kasi yung ganyan mo ganina, it puts too much pressure. And that's already the regular, that's already regular schooling. How much more pa
Mm,
na, now that the distance of learning will maybe kind of like stretch a bit because of access, because of, they could not access technology, there's COVID pandemic, etc. So you add, people will be adding, no, too much pressure sa mga estudyante, no. So it's kind of like cycle and ripple effect of all the pressures that we put sa atong mga kapanalunan. And you're right by saying na, that should not happen. It should be about what they really wanted. Because the other thing approach pa kasi is, maybe I'd like to ask your comment about is, oftentimes adults would say, especially in our, sa atong, di ba, sa common family, sa atong mga pariente, mo na sila na, ay, mo na imong kwaon nga kurso kay para makatrabaho ka og ani. And I don't think that under perhaps the new generation who are kind of like more independent now and maybe highly motivated will say no, they'd like to study or to get a course for a particular purpose rather than just having a job. What's your comment about that? What's your take about that?
mm. Well, I think it really depends on the motivation of the parents, and the motivation as well of their children. Whether they pursue a particular degree because it's more practical, or it's actually out of passion. So that's really true. Like, for example, in the case of education, parents usually encourage their children, to take education because it's more practical. It's easy to get
Mm-hmm.
permanent
Mm-hmm.
position in the Department of Education with government service, meaning they
Mm-hmm.
can have this
Mm-hmm.
JSIS benefits, and they can also
Okay.
expect retirement money, pension when they retire.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually on the practical
Mm-hmm.
side of things, and there's nothing wrong
Mm-hmm.
with that. And but for
Mm-hmm.
me, I think there are children out there, there are young people out there, who are actually destined to do
Mm-hmm.
greater things, that that is actually with higher value or higher purpose, rather than
Mm-hmm.
just simply following the advices of their parents, to pursue a
Mm-hmm.
particular course because it's actually more practical, that it's easy for them
Mm-hmm.
to get a job by having it. So allow them to explore. It's actually their life, it's actually their generation. So yeah, I think it's really actually part of our Filipino culture, that the culture of inheritance, that
Mm-hmm.
even what kind of degree that your children would like to pursue is
Mm-hmm.
actually
Mm-hmm.
highly dependent on your advice, or even actually your will. So I
Mm-hmm.
advise parents, allow your children to pursue their passion, allow them to explore and
Mm-hmm.
discover and direct their lives.
All right. So okay. So well, before we proceed to next part, maybe we just would like to acknowledge our viewers for tonight. Joe Salik of Cotabato. Mayong gabi, Joe. We have Tommy Pangkoga, who's watching with us now. Si Glenjel Umali, who's based now in, I think, Malaysia. Si Z Zhu, I was mentioned that she's an author, writer as well of storybooks. We have si Bucci. Si Louis Pacardo is also a vlogger and a photographer, and who owns the Marble Boy website. Hi, Louis. Divine Nicor, Izay, and who else? And then the administrators of the the following groups, no, sa Yado, admin of the Youth and Affairs Development Office of Genzan, si Ms. Annie, who else? Si Ate Erlyn, and a lot more. So thank you for watching. Anybody from your side, Juve, whom you would like to greet? Maybe also Doy Ampilan, and the rest of the God. On your side, who kasi mong gusto i-greet diha?
Oh, well, I'd like to say hello to all my friends in the university, as well as from other university in the country, especially in Manila, and of course my students. Yeah, the very purpose why I'm in the university.
All right. Okay, let's get into a little bit lighter topic. What's personal life for someone like Jovanie Espesor? I mean, there's no judgmental, but people will say, academic scholar maguna, so that person is very, very serious of his career in the academic research, as a faculty member. So, if you're saying what's the lighter side of someone like Jovanie Espesor?
Oh, well, I think I'm a very good gardener. I'm actually from a farming
Oh,
family, so yeah, so I like actually, producing my vegetables, my own food. So I have a lot of pechay, bok choy, and herbs. So I have different
oh.
varieties of basil, so in different shapes and sizes and colors, and I have collections of
So you are also
herbs.
doing did your urban gardening quote unquote hobby just started because of the pandemic or even before that?
Well, even actually before, but I found more time to focus on my urban garden because of
Mm-hmm.
the lockdown. So when the government declared a nationwide lockdown by the end of March this year, so I got actually the chance
Mm-hmm.
to focus on my urban garden and produce some
So
vegetables. So
aside
despite, yeah.
so aside from that hobby, what are other things that very light to a scholar like Giovanni?
Oh, well, I also a fan of Korean drama, so I watch a lot of Korean dramas. So because of
So makarelate.
yeah, so
So
the COVID,
everybody can relate, di ba?
yeah, that's true. I actually discovered, that I am also a big fan of Korean dramas when the Crash Landing on You was actually introduced to me by my cousin. So when I started watching it, oh, it's very different from the telenovelas or the drama series here in the Philippines, and
Mm.
it's actually very interesting. So yeah. uh, yeah, there are ordinary things that I also do aside from my uh, the so-called boring academic life.
What was it, for others they might find it boring, but for you that's kind of like your kalipay every day, di ba? Reading, reading a lot. Speaking of this kind of like lighter side of you, the more serious side of you, what basically are specific tips that you can offer to become a successful academic scholar like you? Or do you want it to be called an academic scholar, or do you want it to be called something else? Para dili kayo siya. I don't know. I mean, over up to you.
Well, in our country, I think it's very difficult to label oneself or to label yourself as an academic scholar because there is that uh, very high standard imposed by society, and people, perhaps
I
a
mean,
lot
by
of
the
people,
Philippine society,
yeah, by the
correct?
Philippine society. Yeah, but when I was living abroad, it's not actually a big deal, especially if you are pursuing higher educations and prestigious university. But here in the Philippines, it's actually quite difficult. People might actually react. People might actually have uh,
Mm-hmm.
oppositions and vehement reactions towards such kind of label. But for me, I think I would say
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's a public intellectual, because we're just actually I'm actually doing research not just for the sake of doing research, or just for the sake of uh, what do you call that, nurturing and building my academic portfolio, but we're also trying to do our best that the research that we are actually producing will also impact public policy, and that can help developing organizations, government agencies, to improve their mechanisms, as well as their delivery of services, particularly to the poor. Yeah, so I think that's the main
Mhm.
goal of doing scholarly work.
Mhm. It's not just academic research. Go ahead, Jug.
Uh, 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 Again, I think there was an interruption.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, you're loud and clear.
Well, yeah. Okay. Sorry for that. This another internet. Welcome to the Philippines.
Yeah,
Another internet. So you were saying, you don't just do academic research for the sake of quote unquote intellectual colors, sort of that. But these are
yeah,
basically research being used for development discourse. And when you say development discourse being used to adapt, say, policy research, ba, para sa ato mga polisiya, sa mga laws na gina-create, sa mga system strengthening, say, maybe peace building, maybe you do research in health, or the research that's being done now by COVID, things like that. So, as you were saying, being a public intellectual is kind of like just another way of supporting our community. Nothing so quote unquote sexy about it, right? Because others would say,
yeah,
because you're up there, but you should understand. I know it's not like that. We're just playing different roles on what we wanted to be able to contribute. And I think that's the message of tonight's discussion. Scholar ng Bayan, if you wanted to become Scholar ng Bayan, is you find what you wanted to do and what you wanted to contribute, rather than I wanted to have this job kay social nga job, or feeling bright ko ani nga trabaho, or sikat ko ani nga trabaho, right? It's what you wanted to contribute, rather than what title will you have in your life. And that the PhD and all of that are just colors in life, isn't it?
yeah. That's really true. PhD is just actually another three letters added to your name, and it's not even actually part of our name. So, oh yeah, it's
I like that. It's not actually being part of our name. Love that. Okay.
yeah. So I don't really mind, whether my students put my titles after my name, or they put a doctor or professor before my name. So I don't really care, because my parents just gave me Jovanie as my name. So that's actually
That's it.
enough for me. Yeah. So I think that's the good thing actually of being educated abroad, that you don't need to brag your titles, and
Mm, mm,
the education that we got actually from a foreign university is just actually our initial capital to do something bigger, to do something greater, especially that can
mm.
help our society.
All right, we just say hello to May Baliena, a scholar as well, watching now. Si James
Hello, May.
Vasquez Espanyol. Hi, May. Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, let's continue our getting personal to for I think what's the another I think this is already the fourth takeaway that I've written, is that as anybody would like to become a scholar, or would like to succeed in his academic, is actually being successful in academic is not getting the titles and having that Latin honor, sort of. It's what's gonna happen to you after all of these titles, because di ba yung titles are kind of like very very heavy to weight to carry, di ba? Sabi nga nila, with that's a power, and that power comes with very very big responsibility at that.
Yeah, okay. Based on experience, I think, with some academics that we have encountered here in our country, that their doctoral degree is actually their crowning glory of their career, and they stop at that. And I think that should not be the case. it's just an initial credential that is actually given you to do something bigger and greater.
All right. So now let's go to more practical tips. Sa mga I know there are uh, quote unquote wannabe scholars who are watching now. What are basic tips that you can give them if they wanted to become a scholar abroad, or a get an academic scholarship, or a grant, international grant or local grant? What are basically tips that they have to be prepared, or what did you do to be able to get, say, a scholarship in your PhD?
Well, in my case, I say that I had the advantage, of getting the scholarship because I was employed in the university, and basically providers of scholarships, they tend to give priority, special treatment to people in the university. But it's not actually exclusive to people in the university. So for those who are aiming to go on scholarship and pursue postgraduate studies abroad, what's actually more important is that you have to prepare yourself intellectually.
Okay.
What I mean is that you have to do some initial investments of doing research, although this research may be not really um, theoretically grounded or heavily conceptualized using theories and complicated frameworks. As long as you start doing the process and immersing yourself into the
Mhm.
process, and culture of of research, of culture of doing actually inquiry, of thinking critically, is starting to develop on you. And that's actually the point that you have that craving to discover more. And
Mhm.
and of course, reading a lot, in a specific field, will actually help you, and it will give you idea, how other scholars do it, how other scholars think, and even
Mhm.
actual expression. We have to admit that here in the Philippines, although we are conversant in English, still English is not actually our first language. And if you go to the US, you go to British universities, the language is actually very different. Because the way they express, both written and verbal, are quite different from what we are actually used to here in the Philippines. But by reading academic journals, reading books, you can actually have that kind of idea, on how scholars express their ideas, express and present their arguments in a scholarly way.
All right. So in summary, we're saying sa mga gusto diha mahimong academic scholar, or to get a possible scholarship grant, there are a few things that they would need to prepare. One is, you were saying, so what's your story, di ba? I mean, what's your story would mean what, also would mean what can you actually contribute to the community.
Mm.
So you wanted to apply for this scholarship. Say if you wanted to apply for scholarship in natural sciences, maybe your story is because you live in a, say, fishing village, and you
Mm,
wanted to contribute to your fishing community, di ba? So things like
yeah,
that. And the second part you mentioned is, which is very very good suggestion, and I also advise this one for young people: don't stop reading. Magbasa jud pirmi. I have already, well, I also have to be honest, I have lots of books. Ako man diha wala pa na ako nabasa, but reading really helps a lot. I understand the people, our generation Z, the Gen Z, mga manghod sa sa mga millennials like us, they kind of like, no, there's already video, so I can watch videos, and I'll be able to understand. But for me, the in-depth process of critical thinking, nga ginaingon ni Dr. Jovanie earlier, you cannot just get by watching video. You really have to read, and then pause, and then reflect on that. So reading really, and then that's the second takeaway within this kind of like question. The other part, you mentioned, and just would like to carry it out, is also to ask themselves, how do you become critical thinkers, di ba? And then, if you wanted to to get into this kind of like environment, to develop that critical thinking skills. And I think that the generation Z now, there's so much opportunities in them that we don't have, di ba? Like, you just Google scholarship, and then it's already there, di ba? You
true.
can, I don't know, during my time, if if I don't have friends who've gone to XYZ, I would not know it. For example, if when I got my fellowship from the Asian Institute of Management, if somebody didn't tag me on that, I would not know that that is actually uh, available. Maybe the same for you. I don't know, but for now, you just can. The World Wide Web, the social media is very very vast. There's a good plethora of all of these opportunities. It's just up just for for the young generation to get it. But I think the challenge is because sa kadaghan-daghan opportunity, basig how would you advise young people para dili malunod, or what are the suggestions you can give to young people para dili malunod sa so much opportunities facing them right now
Mm.
with the technology that we have?
I think one thing that is actually very important is actually to prepare yourself. You know, you have to earn that initial credential, initial capital, for you to get those opportunities. You know, when a particular opportunity actually opens or becomes available, then make sure that you're actually ready to grab it, because you cannot participate in a competition if you have not actually prepared the initial requirements or the initial credentials for such particular opportunities. So, like for example, you know, if you want to pursue a scholarship or a doctoral degree in other countries, then you have to start, you know, investing on yourself by pursuing a master's degree here in the Philippines, or engage in some research undertaking and do initial publication, because it's actually a very competitive endeavor, and it depends on the kind of scholarship. If it's actually provided by a development agency, they will look at the development impact of what you're going to do in their countries. But if it's actually provided by a university abroad, it's actually highly academic and very theoretical. So you really have to invest and prepare yourself so that you will be ready. You know, when an opportunity becomes available, then
Mhm.
you have that confidence to engage in a competition.
All right, so that's the higher part of being a scholar. Now let's go down to say our take to younger generations taking now senior high school moments, di ba? Because I think the K to 12 the K to 12 what's this, how do you call that, curriculum, or the K to 12 education system that we're having now in the Philippines kind of like put our young people to decide for particular academic strand that they'd like to get into. So my question would be, if you are going to suggest on basic steps that a young person shall do to be able to decide which academic strand, kung asa academic strand iyang gusto nga i-take, what would that steps be? What will be those steps para for example, if you are going to advise me or give me suggestions na I am lost between I'm going to UMS, I'm going to STEM, or I'm going to TechVoc, what steps should I do to be able to decide and then finally get into the right academic strand I'm going to pursue in senior high school?
Mm. Oh, well, I think there is no universal formula when it comes to making decisions, you know, on what strand that we're going to take. And especially now here, especially here in the Philippines, that the quality of education actually differs from if you're in urban or in rural settings. So that's really actually quite difficult, you know, to figure out what particular step that the young people should actually take. But what's actually good now is that with the K to 12, our young individuals are actually prepared, you know, for whatever strand that they would like to pursue in college. And when I return to the university after finishing my degree, I actually discovered that my first year students in college are actually more mature and compared to my students in previous years. So what I think what's more important is that they should be guided properly by their teachers. So I think that the choice of school, you know, where you're going to take your junior high school, your senior high school, um, play actually a very big role, you know, in helping you to decide which academic strand that you're going to take, or perhaps there is what do you call that? uh, maybe there are some lapses, or some flaws, in the design of our K to 12 curriculum. Because in other countries, I think they have been doing that for many many years, and somehow some of them have already perfected the system. But here in the Philippines, we just implemented, I think, the K to 12 maybe 6 years ago, and there are things that we need to polish, to make students prepare for what kind of degree that they would like to pursue, whether they go to STEMs or UMs. Because, like for example, in the case of New Zealand, if you pursue STEM, then you will actually take a lot of higher mathematics and physics while you are in the senior high school. So that's how they prepare their students to take engineering, physics, and other hard sciences based courses in the university.
Is what he was trying to say is that it's difficult to advise or to at least provide suggestions to the students because of, as well as the kind of like the readiness of our system.
I think
Pero
that's
pero,
one.
pero going back, Jude, because young people would not understand that. I mean, I don't know, but putting myself into the sa mga sa mga sa mga sapatos chinelas sa young people, they would say, oh, if how do you know, I'm lost in terms of what I wanted to do in my life. But in the simpler manner, but we can say that maybe go back to they have to ask what are their interests, and then by asking the interest, maybe ask them within the interest where actually they are actually confident that they kind of like excel, or they know they have a knowledge of a particular skill, di ba?
Mm,
And then the other one would be, as well as to say them to look at their other resources, like do they have financial capacity to pursue a particular strand. For example, in my case, I would always remember this one. I really wanted to. I think during that time I wanted to. There I had like 3 or 4 choices when I joined college. So I was education English. Sorry, BS Economics, education English. Then there's another one, and then Pol Sci was actually not the. I think the fourth for the fourth choice, and in the and then accountancy rather. So
yeah.
I've got I've got a scholarship in accountancy by a organization in the city, but I said I
Mm,
could not go to the accountancy program because I have problems with, the scholarship is only good for my tuition. So where would I get my baon, ako pamasahe, you know me, how poor life was before. So I said I'm not going to go to that accountancy scholarship in another university in the city. The second was, okay, let me take education English, and then later ang education English will going to require me to have board exam. Pobre man mi kaayo, so I could not do it. So I said no to board exams, and then later, so two choices were left. So AB Economics and AB Pol Sci. Now walay board exam sort of, and then I went to political science. So having said that, I think it's also one, the interest and the talent of the of the young person. Number two, the resources and capacity and access of information of that young person. And then number three is also the network where the young person belongs, di ba? Kasi it's not just about I am very interested of this but I don't have resources, and maybe later uh, uh, come back. And because it's easy for us adults to say, kung asa ka masaya, kung asa ka masaya, dito ka, kung asa ka naitan, dito ka. But if you don't have the resources, that's also different. And now that there's pandemic, that there's competition for us to go online, and then our parents don't have pampalit man lang, o sorry for the word
mm,
lang, pampalit og at least good cell phone to do online class,
mm.
that creates more of a divide of
Yeah,
accessing better education, isn't it?
that's
Your
true.
thoughts?
Yeah, that's true. We really have to admit that, a lot of people in our country are actually grappling in poverty, and that's actually a major consideration when it comes to the of making choices, of what strand they're going to take in college. Actually, maswerte na gani na maka-college pa sila eh, 'di ba, out of poverty. But to make that decision which strand, it's actually really motivated and highly influenced by our economic our what you call that, economic standing in life. That's really true, as you've said. In my case, I really want to pursue doctor of medicine, but I look at actually the financial health of the family, and my mother was actually ailing at the time, so I think it's not practical to pursue medicine. And after college, I want to pursue law. Then I realized that uh, I think I should give up or put on hold, my ambition of becoming a lawyer, because my siblings are also in school, and I have to help my parents in, of course, earning income for the family. So there are things like that, and but for me, yeah, um, practical reason is actually very important thing of making decisions on what to pursue in college, and somehow we are happy and thankful that uh, even for some people that out of poverty they can still pursue. Higher educations. We know a lot of people in MSU that they actually live in our dormitories, that they're just paying 200 pesos for one semester,
Correct.
and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and of course, surviving in whatever money that their parents or guardians are actually sending to them every week. So those are the things. And of course, there are also young people out there who are actually gifted with uh, uh, good economic standing in life, perhaps parents with lucrative income and sizable amount of wealth. For them, they can actually pursue degrees out of passion. But
Okay.
we can, yeah,
But well, before commenting on that and summarizing that altogether, maybe I just would like to read a message from Miko. Sabi ni Miko, "Hi idols or idols. Hi Miko. I just wanted to ask, and I guess Kuya JC knows this. I think too that one practical tip is to know yourself, know your worth, your passion, and whatnot. And I think the whatnot is kind of like the most important thing, di ba? Know what you cannot do. Di ba? Imagine og bisag unsa diha, di ba? More so know what else you are hoping to achieve. Okay.
mm-hmm.
I think it's a good way to begin with searching for any opportunities, whether scholarship locally, looking into your strand, kung mag-senior high school ka, bigger scholarship going college and masters. And lastly, studying overseas is never easy. Time would come that you would really doubt yourself. And whenever that happens, and even not overseas, right? Even studying locally, you will be able to doubt yourself. Kanang ano nagnaaman ko din he, di ba? And then whenever that happens, always go back to your core reasons. And I think no, not I think I this is a very very good a statement from Miko, from your Kuya Miko, saying always go back to your core and reasons on why you wanted to do it. And to summarize what your points, it's kind of like saying that, when you look for a particular strand, kung it's also okay to change, di ba? Maybe you
Yeah,
started as STEM, then later you realize you are UMS, or later you said you are STEM, you are UMS, but later you said I'll go to tech book because I have a kind of like very excellent skill on electricity and all of that, on hospitality management. I love to cook, or
hmm.
things like that. So it's okay to change. That's one. Number two, it's okay to push back. Na atras gamay, and then reflect, and then also okay to pause. And sometimes it's okay to stop. And then that was our experience, diba? As you were saying earlier, it took you 5 years to get into your masters because you
Yeah,
stop. And me too. It took me like forever to complete my master's program until now. So I owe this one to the university. The university allowed me to study master's program without paying anything because I was part of the university at that time. But I stopped and said after getting my CGM, no. And then long story, and now I'm still studying. So it's kind of like, di ba, sa atong young people,
yeah,
it's okay to pause if you,
yeah.
especially
It's
you were
okay
saying.
to have some detours and setbacks. Yeah, they're actually part of our lives.
Life is a spiral, my friend. It's not kind of
Yeah,
like a one off. It's not even a circle, di ba? It's kind of like
Yeah.
spiral. Go up, you go down, move up again, they move another spiral, di ba? Things that, because young people now, I'm talking to the Gen Z, they're very afraid to lose. And because hadlock sila mapildi bitaw, what they are going to do, dili sila, they back off. I don't know,
Yeah.
how was your mga pamangkin, not to mention names, but the younger generation that, are they the same, just like sa akong experience?
Well, I have some niece and nephews actually, but they're still young, and some of them are actually quite competitive and also trying to be ready to pursue higher education. Even actually outside General Santos, I actually encourage them to go to the University of the Philippines in Diliman. You know, uh, yeah. So I I have very high regards, of course, for the not for the University of the Philippines. Not that um, that I actually discriminate the value of education in MSU, but I think if uh, one can actually able to compete and study in UP, I think that would be a very good preparation. And I'd like to comment on what Miko, going back to your core. Um, I think that's a very matured comment, though, that is maybe produced or generated out of maturity and some hurdles and challenges that we have encountered in life. But for young people, I'm not sure, though, if they're capable of reflecting and identifying what's really actually in their core. So that's actually the very challenge of for young people now, and they should be guided by adults, especially by parents, and of course their teachers.
All right. Before that, we just would like to say hello to Jovar Pantao, Truel Cardens, who else? To the admin of Tiakap Kalilintad, and to Lalang Lu. This is still Samahan si Kuya Nonoy with Dr. Jovanie Espesor. Our topic tonight still on how do we find opportunities for our young generation to appreciate more becoming a good scholar and a good student under this new normal environment. Okay, maybe a little bit of an inspiration sa ato mga viewers tonight. So I'll be showing 3 select photos of Jovanie, and let's try to ask Jovanie, what was this photo all about, and what inspiration does this photo has for Jovanie personally, and take that to the viewers now as an inspiration. Let's take out this photo. Okay. Hold on for a while. Okay, so this is again Taray Suryahanayta, scholar ng Bayan under New Normal. This is our 5th live with Dr. JC Espesor. All right, this one. So what is this photo all about?
Oh, well, that's actually one perks of being a scholar abroad. That photo is actually with the other members of the research committee on security, conflict, and democratization. So that was taken in Brisbane, Australia. I was actually quite fortunate to be elected as the executive board member of the research committee on security, conflict, and securitization.
And
So
then what lesson did you gain from this experience that the younger generation can emulate or can model from you?
yeah, it's actually more of looking at the giants of the field. So these are actually the giants of the field. So like the lady there that you can actually see in the photo is no less than the president of the Philippine Political Science Association, Dr. Rosalie Hall, and the
Say
other
Dr. Hall?
gentleman. Yeah, that's actually Dr. Rosalie Hall. Yeah,
Okay,
and the
okay.
other gentlemen there that you can actually see, there are also prominent professors from different countries. Like
Mm.
we have, of course, from New Zealand. My supervisor Steve is actually there. There is another one from Harvard, that white guy in the middle. The
Okay.
the guy beside him is actually from Afghanistan with a doctorate degree from the Washington University, and there's yeah, Dr. Hamdi Atalia from Sayed University in Dubai, and then uh, Professor Aguilar from Brazil, who is actually an eminent diplomat of the United Nations, and we have Dr. Kompel, a citizen of Czech Republic, who is currently based in the University of Nagasaki. So these are actually, community of scholars, and we share the same interest in research, especially when it comes to security. And they I really appreciate them because they you know they share their networks. They also share their expertise to a very young and of course a brooding scholar. At the time,
Mhm.
I don't have my PhD yet. I was actually a PhD student, but I am grateful of such kind of opportunity of being elected as executive board member of a prestigious research committee under the International Political Science. And of course, that's the perks actually of doing PhD abroad, that you can actually travel in different countries, just to attend conferences and meet great minds like them. So like the conference in Brazil.
Well, but sorry to cut you, but the
Yeah,
perks comes like kind of like a candy of it's just a candy and color or spice of your life. But I think the very good takeaway from this lesson is when you say these are the big giants of the
yeah.
profession. And maybe as a key takeaway and lesson sa atong mga kapanahunan would say, do not be afraid to face big giants. Diba? So you're saying you're still a student here facing these
Mm,
big giants and get inspiration from big giants, di ba? I always say to every time I'm given the opportunity to speak on leadership and management, to always be close to as you were saying, correct, the term that I use also is our giants. Don't be afraid to battle, whether not physically, but in argument, in good discussion, in meaningful conversations, in academic discourse, in discussing development points of view, even personal life with big giants, because that will also going to add maturity, isn't it?
that's true. And there's no reason actually to be afraid of them, because they're not going to destroy you. They're not going to demolish you. But some of them, they might actually serve as your mentor. These giants will actually allow you to step onto their shoulders.
Mhm.
So
I mean,
yeah.
let's take it on a kasi let's try to put in I the young people now are really fan of computer games, and that cannot
Mm.
be denied. Do you play ba? Nagadula ba ka?
Well, when I was in high school,
Okay, so
I, I, I,
I
I, I have that
go ahead.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I asked that because I think when I ask young people nga nung nagadula sila o say ML or Dota, they could not answer in terms of, so who are your, they have idols, and they have they have my inspirations nila, say XYZ is the best in X, in rank ni ing ani is rank what, diba they have rankings. But when
Mm,
I ask them, have you already talked to that idol, diba, ito ka na imong gina-idolize sa computer games, and they said
mm.
kahadlok man na oy, makaulaw man na oy. And I think that's also a key takeaway. It's the same, di ba? If you wanted to excel on a particular field, don't be afraid to talk and approach your quote unquote role models, your idols, di ba? Your possible mentors that will come, that will going to bring you to become a better you, isn't it?
That's really true. Kuya, some people actually criticize me of my propensity to have this close engagement with powerful people. Perhaps because we are in the field of political science, and because like for example, in my university abroad, it's actually it's quite common actually to see prestigious people, powerful people visiting the university. And I never hesitate, whenever I got a chance to approach them. Like for example, ambassadors of different European countries. Almost every month we have visitors who are actually ambassadors of different European countries because we offer European studies. And I usually attend their lectures and approach them after that, and just to ask some questions. And for me, it's actually a very, very interesting, a very fruitful endeavor, although it's actually quite scary, to approach those people. But that's one thing I would like to advise to our young people, to counter that fear, because there is something that you can actually learn by engaging and even just talking to these people.
Yeah, I think that's a very good message. Counter that fear, no? Because maybe our viewers tonight will might misinterpret this as swerte man na siya kaya dito siya nakaskwela. But actually that's the message. The message is whoever you are facing, get that opportunity to bisag elbow to elbow lang, di ba? Hay para makakita kang artista, di ba? Kung makita tag artista gusto nato atuan gid nato ang artista nga gina-idolize di maka-high lang man ta. It's the same endeavor if you wanted to succeed on your profession. Don't be afraid and counter your fear by talking to them during, diba, snacks break, pag mag-attend kang seminar duulan mo sila. But other people might misinterpret this as ang yabang naman, parang ang yabang naman niya, but it's not, right? It's just you being passionate of a particular situation.
Ah, yeah, that's very
However,
true.
there's also a counter statement that says, if you wanted to succeed in life, don't talk your ambitions and visions to somebody who don't have the same visions with you. Because misinterpret ka nila as mayabang, di ba? As arrogant. What's your take on that?
Well, that's really true, though. But of course, those criticisms, I think they should not be demolished or diminished uh, or disregarded completely, because it also gives us opportunity to have, self-reflections, whether there is actually a kernel of truth to what they're saying against us. But still, it's actually your passion, and it's not the concern of others. And some,
Okay, I
they
like
don't
that. It's
simply
not the
like
concern of
to.
others, but as long as you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah, and so,
Because
yeah, it's actually part of reality that some people are not really happy actually of what you have achieved. Yeah,
well, that's very direct of you, but I like that because we don't want to say na pa sometimes being safe zone is also just because you don't want to battle your own fears, diba? So kind of
it's
like just
true.
go ahead. All right, second picture. What is this one?
Oh, I think that's the what do you call that, the fun part of doing postgraduate studies abroad. So that's actually taken from the Green Dragon Alley in Hobbiton. So that's actually from in the movie set of the Lord of the Rings. So
Oh, to the fans of the Lord of the Rings, if you
yeah,
wanted to see the real, is this that kind of like the quote unquote real site of
yeah,
where the Lord of the Rings?
that's a real site in Mata. Yeah,
Okay.
so
I know
that's
there
not.
are so many fans of Lord of the Rings listening, looking now. I mean, watching us now.
Yeah, and so I got the chance actually to visit that place twice in New Zealand. So it's actually visited by 3,000 to 5,000 people a day. So that's a very famous tourist
Wow, that's a
destination.
lot.
Yeah, in New Zealand, and Peter Jackson is actually earning a lot of money because of that tourist attraction. And that's actually one thing, that I'm very grateful of being a scholar in New Zealand, because I was able to travel the entire country from the southernmost point in Bluff of the South Island to the northernmost tip of the North Island in Cape Reinga.
Mhm,
So it's a wonderful country.
mhm.
It's a paradise, and um, and that's because I spent many years of doing postgraduate studies there. So that's it's an eye opener actually to me, and of course it also allows me to pursue my passion in photography. To do some landscape photography, collect some pictures. Although
Just
most
like
of them,
just like me, diba?
yeah. So I share that passion
Go
actually
ahead, go
with
ahead.
Nico. So we're actually the gala students of the department, because Miko was already a senior
I,
master student. Yeah,
yeah, I even tease Miko by saying, "Are you really studying what's this, in New Zealand, or are you just being a tourist, a tourista there?" But anyway, so okay, our takeaway for the second photo is that enjoy life. I mean, you have your personal life, you can pursue, you can help others and do development research, etc. But we also have to remember that we don't take away our personal life as well, right? So, okay, this one, what is this? Well, this one is pretty obvious. This is your graduation when you got your finally your doctoral degree, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's actually the concluding glory actually of my stay in New Zealand. So actually, Kuya Ern, if you're going to study in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, you don't really need to attend graduation. A lot of postgraduate students, they don't normally attend graduations
Mhm.
because our degrees are actually granted um, ahead of time before graduation, unless you really
Mm.
want to participate in this traditional rites of graduating by wearing the regalia and receiving your testamore or the so-called diploma in person, and meeting, of course, the chancellor of the university. So it's really an option. So like in my case, I finished my degree in February, and it took me many months actually just to get my diploma, because I have to travel back to New Zealand in December in 2019 just to collect that piece of paper. So, but it's actually a very nice experience of attending graduation, because it gives me some sense of fulfillment, a sense of conclusion of the many years that I actually spent of engaging in a scholarly endeavor in New Zealand just to get that kind of degree.
So it's kind of like the takeaway for this one is the celebration, fulfillment, and conclusion of efforts, right? It's kind of like
Yeah,
the, you were saying it's kind of like the colors of life, pero it's actually celebration, fulfillment, and then conclusion, and as well as preparing yourself for greater battle and greater responsibility. So
that's
we are
true.
kind of like, yeah, we are kind of like near to our final set. Just would like to say hello to Cherdel watching now from the UAE, United Arab Emirates. I could not actually maybe my phone has a problem. I would like to greet to those who are actually watching us via different group and live chat. Sa mga nag-watch di have, I know because we are actually in about 8 or 10 live watch parties. Thank you so much sa inyong pagtanaw. So last question perhaps coming from me, Giovanni. How do you balance academics, life outside of school, family and friends, and your personal space?
Oh, well, for me, family is very important. When I returned to the country after finishing my degree, I had this plan of pursuing a career in Manila, because I had this opportunity actually to work for a very prestigious school in Manila. But eventually, I realized that I need to go back to Mindanao, because when I was in New Zealand, my brother and my sister were actually here in General Santos, and then I realized upon my return, they're no longer here in the city, because my brother went to abroad, for employment, and then my sister got a job in other part of the country. So basically, I am the only member of the family. Um yeah, in my hometown. I have to take care a lot of family matters, and being the head of the family, family is actually very important, and I have to I have also to help my cousins, and of course other members of the family, especially the elderly in the family. So I make sure that I have time for family gatherings, family events. So like last week, our uncle actually died. So those are important. Although death in the family is actually brings a lot of sadness, but it's also a nice opportunity to have fellowship with other members of the family. So those are important things for me. And friends, yeah, I sometimes I hang out with friends. Like I'm helping some of my friends in doing
Mhm.
in running the coffee and tea business. Promoting the new business. So yeah, so things like that. And yeah, and of course for personal space, it's very important that you have your own personal space, that you know how to detach yourself from the sources of stress, especially that are actually work related. So you need to have that kind of balance, and to have that kind of compartments. Yeah, I call it compartments in life, that you know, yeah,
Blocks.
yeah, like blocks. Yeah, yeah, because sometimes, you know, we don't need to internalize um uh of course, stressors. Yeah, so
Correct.
to have that kind of balance, so that, you know, uh and of course, being happy, and of course taking care of our health, even actually taking care of our beauty is actually important, you know, to have that kind of balance, not just focusing on um scholarly things, and even actually work in our respective organization, but also to spend time with our family, with our friends, and to give some space, give some time to ourselves.
Wow. Well, the other, if you may, I'm sorry, if I may, Giovanni, just would like to share. I'd like to go into the compartmentalization of life. For example, in my case, I will always remember it because it happens to me as a few times already. So, for example, they would say, I remember when I had my despedida party in one of the organizations that I've worked with before. One of the revelations nga gihatag nila sa ko was, we didn't know nga nagainom dahi ka. And I said, what? And then then I asked them, where did it come from? Kasi, you know what, Burakag, you kind of like, they see me as a very serious person in the office. So, and, I was doing some, reviewing the project proposals, etc., attending meetings. And they thought that, I also bring that kind of like style of to my personal life. So then when they had my despedida party, nagalibog sila, should we drink and do video in the despedida party? And ito lang, kind of like a revelation. It happens to me a couple of times. And then when I was assigned in one of the emergency program before in Hayan, uh, people would say, nagkakanta-kanta din na siya sa video, no? And I think the key takeaway there is, it's not a different you. It's just putting ourselves to a correct environment, of a more relaxed environment, but also playing a good role at that. Diba? Even for example, even ako, if mag-uli ko sa barrio, I laugh, and I laugh and chant and even bugoy-bugoy with some of the gangs there, without I'm trying, at least I know I'm trying my best not to hijack the conversation with them, no, pag nag-inom and all of that. We talk
Mm.
about katawanan ng mga butang. I try not to talk about politics, economics, and the development problems of the world, because that's the I think that's the thing that people should understand, no. And I like that fact that I think that your conclusion is that the level of maturity, they would not know na bata pa ka, di ba? The way you talk now, I don't know. We are not going to reveal our age
Yeah.
at this discussion, but that kind of maturity, I don't call it a boring maturity, kasi ganun din, nag-inim mo our boring academic life. No, I call it that kind of maturity in handling life is actually also a result of our experiences, our exposure, the challenges that we face, and that because you were not afraid, as you were saying ganina, you were not basically afraid to counter your own fear. And by doing so, you can just face, and no holds bar, you become more mature. Alan Lawa here says, you're still a very, very good speaker, Juve. So, any final comment of that? Hi, Alan Mayang Gabi. Thank you for joining, even it's already 8:58
Hello,
tonight.
friend. Yeah, well, Alan is actually our very good friend way back in our, way back during our time in the provincial government of Sarangani.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
So I think Alan is doing well as a teacher in Malungon.
Yeah, I know. And I know Alan is also one of these kind of like a mature person now, having through with, like all of us, different challenges in life, but battling those challenges, facing our fear, and then just going with go with the repos, but never forget your goal in life. I think that's also the message
Yeah.
for tonight. And
Mm.
especially, go ahead.
No. Oh well, one thing, Kuya Ern, that I'd like to share is that um, perhaps for some people they actually see my accomplishment as something that is actually spectacular. But I was not able to get that kind of accomplishment in a very easy way. I went through a lot of pains and hurdles and challenges. Even depression and anxiety. I have to overcome that. By
Okay,
studying
okay.
alone abroad. Yeah, and of course dealing with academics. You're dealing with a lot of supervisors with different comments, giving you different directions. So those are the things that you have to overcome, and we're able to overcome and able to accomplish something. It's actually worth fulfilling. So it's okay to experience pain. It's okay to go through trials and tribulations. If you want to ascend and earn um, credentials, especially academic credentials.
Okay, that's a very good way to conclude. So we finally come into our conclusion for tonight. Just to summarize kung sa atong mga natunan karong gabi. Una, one, to be a scholar doesn't necessarily mean you get to be very, very intelligent. You just have to prepare yourself and battle what you wanted to do in life. That's one. More specifically, down the line, if you wanted to choose a particular, say, strand when you enter senior high school, or a particular course when you enter college, the best way to do is to remember three things. One, what is your interest and passion in life? Two, what are your tools that you have already to pursue that passion and interest? And what can you actually contribute? Rather, ask yourselves what you can actually contribute rather than ask yourself kung sa iyong trabaho after. And of course, number three would be also find your other resources and networks to pursue that. The other lesson now we got from the message of Jovanie tonight as well is to also look at that there are actually opportunities, but there will also be missed opportunities. Bottom line is just don't stop and just move forward. The other takeaway is that within your quote unquote academic endeavor in life, there has to be always be personal and lighter side of things. And that's once you are there and once you are pursuing your dream, say your dream academic scholarship or your dream courses, don't be afraid to face your giants, because the giants may be your mentors. They will become your friends. They will become your inspiration along the line. Talk to your giants, right? And then also, Giovanni talked about tips for virtual learners. Uh, the the internet, the World Wide Web is very open for all of you. It's just kind of like picking from the so many choices and so many options down the line, but also not be stuck the basig malulod mo sa so much of your choices. So within the so many choices, maybe pick a few things and really discover and focus on that. But while also focusing, Giovanni earlier also mentioned about it's okay to stop. It's okay to pause. It's okay to push back, diba? And then it's okay to be a little bit sorry of your things and just come back. And so many other things that Giovanni shared to us tonight. So this has been a very, very good and a very, very uh, good journey and discussion, and indeed another meaningful conversation. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Jovanie C. Espesor. If they wanted to talk to you more, where they can see you?
Oh, well, they can reach me via Facebook, or they can actually visit me in the university.
Or maybe time for us to also just advertise where you can actually what's this meet Giovanni if he will be there. So kanina nabanggit niya maybe you can meet Giovanni in one of our sponsors tonight. It's Happiness Tea Shop located in Kalumpang General Santos City, right? Do you own
Yeah.
this one, Juv? No, you own, your family own this one, and
Well,
and and go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I would be happy to see them there and have some, good chat and yeah, catching
All
up.
right. Catching up. So catch up with Dr. Jovanie Espesor. Talk about personal life. Talk about how to succeed in your academic career. Learn so many lessons with him. And just to summarize what we have for the past 3 Wednesdays, we started off with being a student and the joy of becoming a volunteer and a community development worker. And then last week we've talked to Carol Bellu Dawanlay, who gave us a good talk and discussion and also meaningful conversation into loving your passion for music and culture and how it's actually still relevant under this new normal environment. And tonight we cap it up with how do we balance volunteerism and love for music and culture, learn and unlearn from becoming a scholarship. So again, this has been Samahan si Kuya Nonoy, tara istoryahanay ta. Maayong gabi kanatong tanan. Salamat Dr. Jovanie
Ang
Espesor.
gabi. Bye.
Bye everyone. Thank you for all our viewers. Bye bye.